The Bears rookie stock from 2023 is skyrocketing. If you're not investing, you should be now. The second-year guys look great. The rookies look great. Our veterans absolutely look fantastic. And our undrafted rookie free agents are starting to create some really good competition. The Bears won yesterday 23-17 against the Tennessee Titans, and we're here to break it all down. My name is Dick Brody. Thank you for joining this episode of Just Another Year Chicago, and I am joined by a very special guest today, Jacob Infante from Windy City Grand Iron. Jacob, welcome to the show.
Hey, Nick, appreciate you having me. It's a fun time of year. I mean, the Bears are back, so I really can't complain. But yeah, no, I'm excited to dig into some of these rookies because I don't know about you, but like whenever I'm first watching those preseason games, like the first guys that I'm looking for is, okay, how did the draft picks do whenever these games go on?
And we had a ton out there. I mean, Tyrique Stevenson was out there early. Darnell Wright, our first round pick, and he had a nice day as well. We're gonna go through it all, and I'm very excited about it too, Jacob. But I gotta ask you a question because I always ask everybody a non-football related question before we begin. I know you're a Chicago area guy, and I know that you know pizza. If you had to choose anywhere to go get a slice of pizza in the Chicagoland area, downtown, burbs, anywhere, where is your choice of slice?
And this is a tough one to choose. There's so many different, so many good spots in Chicago, like growing up around the area. I'm kind of spoiled just thinking about it, but there's a spot in Chicago, like for just a slice that you can get, like buy the slice on the go. I really like Art of Pizza in the South Loop.
Okay.
Big fan of that. If I'm going deep dish, I think my favorite's Lou Malnati's personally, but I think just a pure slice. I'm an Art of Pizza guy. But what about you? I'm interested what your pick is.
So I love Lou Malnati's. There's no doubt about it. It's like a dead tie, and I know it's tough, but I'm an Uno's guy. I think Uno's is in River North. That's the OG pizza. And the story behind it is that Mr. Malnati himself worked for Uno's as a chef, got fired, took the recipe, slightly changed it. Boom, you have Lou Malnati's.
Yeah.
So
I didn't know
Uno's Uno's is just a classic, but Lou Malnati's is great too. If I'm going for a slice, it's tough. Probably New York Slice in Highland Park. I think they have a really good pizza. It's always fresh. They have a couple weird combinations too. So we are very spoiled when it comes to Chicago pizza, but we're spoiled by the Chicago Bears right now. And that's what we're here to talk about with the fans today. So Jacob, kind of starting things off, we talked about the rookies, and let's talk about our number one rookie on the board right now, Darnell Wright. 6'6", 310-pound right tackle from Tennessee. He did a fantastic job, in my opinion, in first NFL action. Looked great on runner routes, took on double teams, looked very good. Jacob, how are you feeling about Darnell Wright after one game? Where's his stock level for you? And what are some things maybe that you want him to improve on?
So I was impressed with what I saw from Darnell Wright early on. Being as starting offensive lineman, you're not going to play a ton in the preseason, but he had enough that we could go off of where we can say, okay, there's something that we can take away from it. As fans, as evaluators, however you want to break it down. I was impressed with Darnell Wright's power, first and foremost. I think that I was really impressed with, how he fought at the point of attack, the tenacity that he had. There's one pass pro rep. I want to say it was the Khalil Herbert touchdown where Fields rolled left and Darnell Wright was just holding up his own at the point of attack. Like there wasn't really there was a little bit of initial pushback, but Darnell Wright just absolutely brick housed the guy. And not to like bury him into the dirt or anything or like a pancake, but just stop him dead in his tracks. And I'm like, okay, that's some grown man strength for a guy who's just, a rookie. So I was impressed with that. I thought he moved well on tape. They had him out in space a little bit, and I did like what I saw. Maybe a little bit more precision in the run game. I think, there was like a run or two where he looked maybe a little out of control, a little bit high in the pads, but and again, this isn't like a massive sample size. It's not like a full game or anything, but I was impressed with what I saw from Darnell Wright. He certainly looked the part. I was happy about the pick beforehand. I'm, still happy about the pick. So I don't know if it changed a ton for me, but nothing negative, nothing bringing his stock down negatively. That's for sure.
And constructive criticism. I mean, it was his first game, probably seeing an NFL stadium, even though he played in Tennessee, which is their stadium's absolutely, I think it's bigger than Soldier Field now with the new renovations they made. But
so, yeah.
I mean, anything's bigger than Soldier Field at this point. There's probably some Texas high school stadiums that are bigger than, BFR Dave could tell us that. But I think with Darnell Wright, one thing that people got to understand is, like you were saying, the pure strength of this guy. I mean, he is literally a bear. And, they did that interview with the rookies beforehand where they were kind of chopping it up with them, seeing what they were like, some of the things that they do on and off the field. And the camera angle, I don't think people understand. They had to back the camera up for him because he's so big. He's a monster. And he could play left tackle if needed, but he's a pure right tackle, which muscle memory and everything, that's great. But he did a fantastic job. And one thing people also aren't talking about enough is how fast he is and how he can move being that big. I mean, shoot, throw him in at fullback on a goal line kind of situation. Who's stopping him? Nobody. He's bigger than William Perry, that's for sure. But no one's stopping that train. I was very impressed with Darnell Wright, how he played yesterday. But one guy on the defensive side of the ball that did a fantastic job is Tyrique Stevenson. Yeah. And, kind of want to hit on him a little bit. Stat line wasn't really talked about too much, but very impressive stat line. He had 7 tackles, all solo, pretty much all of them being an open field tackle. And on top of it, 1 tackle for loss and 1 pass deflection that he could have taken to the house if he would have caught it. Yeah. Tyrique Stevenson is insanely impressive. I mean, I watched a little bit of footage from him from Miami. I was like, all right, this guy's doing good. He comes to camp, did it pretty well. But put him in a game, he is a beast. He looks like he's been in the NFL for a couple years. I know cornerbacks, Ryan Poles loves his cornerbacks. He takes a ton of them at a time. But this he's very good at hitting on them. Jacob, for Tyrique Stevenson in his first game, and it's preseason, but, it's NFL action. Yeah. How would you say, confidence-wise, are you, if you were Flus and you were choosing that final, DB spot, if it was Tyrique Stevenson or Terrell Smith or someone like that, how confident are you in making that decision?
I'd say I'm a bit more confident in Tyrique Stevenson after preseason week 1. From what I saw, like the strengths that you saw from him in Miami were on full display in his Bears debut. And I think, you mentioned all the tackles that he had. There are some cornerbacks, especially in today's game, where, it's all coverage, make a play on the ball, pick 6. That's the flashy style of the day. There's not as much emphasis on tackling. And that's one thing I like about this Bears current regime is they really emphasize a defensive back's ability to tackle. And Stevenson's just rock solid in that area. I was impressed with what he had in run support, in bringing guys down after the catch. The physicality that we saw in man coverage was impressive, and his route recognition I was really impressed with. So the one thing I'll say, it was a bit of like a bend, don't break approach, which I'm not at all complaining with, because in the grand scheme of things, sure, I'd say I'd have to go back and, track the numbers, but there are a handful of catches he allowed, but very little yak, very little. And I think a majority of it, not necessarily Tyrique's fault, is just you're playing off coverage, you're playing zone, and that's your responsibility is to, if you give up a couple of yards, then that's not the end of the world. But the main thing is you're trying to tackle in space, and you're trying to prevent the big play. So I think Stevenson did a lot of the little things right. My viewpoint of him is I think he ends up like a Jalen Johnson type of player, which, it's interesting that they already have Jalen Johnson on the roster. A physical guy, an intelligent guy, someone who's willing to compete, someone who can tackle. I don't think he's going to wow anyone with like interception production by any means. I don't think he's going to be this, wow, 8 interceptions in a year. This guy's like a first team All-Pro. I don't think he's going to be that guy, but I think he's going to be just like that solid corner 2 that you can just rely on. And Another guy I think of is Prince Amukamara for those,
Yes.
the 2018 defense. That's a comparison I keep coming back to with Stevenson. So, and I think people tend to underrate Prince just because, it was a loaded defense and Prince wasn't a superstar, but he was good and you never had to worry about him. So I think that's the type of guy you're getting in Stevenson, and he looked the part in week 1 in the preseason at least.
It's funny you brought up Prince Amukamara. We had our golf outing with Pat the designer was there from ESPN 1000. We had a couple other guys, and we talked about Prince Amukamara for a while. And Tyrique Stevenson, when we said who reminds him, Tyrique Stevenson, just a reliable guy. I think Tyrique Stevenson plays with a little bit more, Charles Tillman kind of swag. Like he's just there every time. Terrell Smith too. I mean, Terrell Smith reminds me more of Peanut Tillman because of his pure size. But Tyrique Stevenson, not a small DB, which is great too.
Yeah.
But the dude just flies everywhere, and he's reliable. He looks smooth out there. You can't actually hear what's going on the field unless you're there and you're super close.
Yeah.
But if you could hear what you're seeing, he's just quiet on the field. Like he's a silent killer. Like you just don't hear him coming, and then it's bam, he's right there. So Tyrique Stevenson's going to be someone that's really special. So someone else special that we were going to hit on today, Jacob, is Roschon Johnson, who honestly, in my opinion, and do your comparison because I feel like maybe we might have a different one here, but he looked like Matt Forte out there. A pinnacle part of the franchise that Ryan Poles has put behind him. Fans are excited about him. But he looked fantastic out there, just absolutely always going forward, bulldozing over guys, and again, a bigger running back. Jacob, what were your thoughts on Roschon? What are you thinking about him, and who would you compare him to in recent Bears running backs?
Yeah, so I was certainly impressed with what I saw from Roschon in his preseason debut. I'll add that I think from the backup offensive line perspective, they didn't generate as much push up front as, like, say, the starters did last year in the run game, where you'd see, like, Khalil Herbert has 5 yards to work with before he's even touched. So there wasn't necessarily that level of space for Roschon to work with, but with what he was given, I think he did a good job. I noticed, like, just the power that he ran with was really impressive. He's just a densely built guy. And, not only that, but he's like 6'1", so there's so much mass that it's tough to bring down. And also just the straight line acceleration I was really impressed with. Someone, as far as a Bears running back, I'd have to think a little bit. As far as general running backs, I like I'd say like a better version of, if you remember, Tyler Algier with the Falcons, who just topped 1,000 yards. I'd say like a bit of a plussed up version of him. So, again, not Bijan level, but pretty damn good. Like just a big built guy who's, good in a straight line. As far as Bears running backs go, I'd probably have to turn the clock back a little bit because I don't think he's entirely like David Montgomery. I think Montgomery's maybe a little bit. He had that shifty ability where he could change direction really well, but he didn't have that long speed. So he'd have a good amount of like 10-yard carries, but those big explosive game-changing plays wasn't really the case. I think that Roschon maybe a little more, stiff-hipped, but he's faster in a straight line. So, but I did say that from a pure power perspective, Roschon did look a little bit like David Montgomery in that aspect running over guys and, fighting through contact and staying up through tackle attempts. I guess Montgomery's the closest thing. It's not a perfect comparison. If I wanted to really turn back the clock, maybe like an Anthony Thomas, maybe, but
okay. Yeah. I knew you were going that way.
Yeah. But yeah, I was impressed with what I saw from Roschon. And I'm excited to see what he can do the rest of the preseason. I'd like to see him get some reps with the starters, but that'll come in due time, I'm sure.
My favorite thing about Roschon was that, a lot of people were concerned about him because he hasn't been playing in pads during practice. He's been, on the sideline.
Yeah.
Come out the game, he's the first man out there in pads, and everyone's like, we're going to have a party today. Like, it's going to be the Roschon Johnson show. And I think he did a great job. Just like you said, the pure power of him is just something different. And, the blocking ability that I don't know if you noticed, Jacob, something I was looking out for to see what type of packages would be for certain running backs. And for Foreman and Johnson, there was no fullback most of the time. There was a fullback every now and then, but Herbert is going to always have to have a fullback out there, which hurts the team in some ways. But it did work out because Blasingame had a nice 10-yard or 11-yard catch for a first down.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't mind it. I like that old style offense. Fullbacks, I think, are super cool. I think that it's, Chicago Bear football, just tough guys out there. Jason McKee from ESPN, when he was a Super Bowl fullback, just something about it screamed Chicago Bears football, at least from when I was growing up. So, I thought the package was fine, but everyone did great. And put a couple more rookies out there. Let's flip it back to the defensive side of the ball real quick. Holy cow, Zach Pickens and Javon Dexter Sr. They are going to be some absolute monsters. And I got torched a little bit a couple weeks ago for saying with Will Wright that these guys are going to be a 60-plus sack team. And everyone's like, you guys are crazy. There's no way. But that was also before we had Yannick. But at the same time, Javon Dexter and Pickens are making pressure up the middle, which is way tougher to do than the edges. And the edges looked great. I mean, everyone that was in there. How are you feeling about the dynamic duo of defensive tackles we took in the first couple rounds? I mean, I feel great, but Jacob, how you feeling?
So I'm intrigued. I think that's the way I'll put it is with both Dexter and Pickens, there were flash plays there. I know Pickens had the sack. He looked really good on that play. Both guys looked athletic as hell, which I was really impressed with, the get off speed. And I know some people were a little bit worried with Dexter in terms of how he times getting off the ball. I know that's part of what Florida's defense teaches is like a read and react sort of thing on the defensive line. So you're not, firing straight into the backfield every single time, and then can make it look like you're a little bit delayed. So Dexter, not as familiar with that type of rushing. There were sometimes there's a little bit of a learning curve, but when he got it right, there was some really freaky athleticism for a guy that big. So I was intrigued. I mean, I think that with both guys, there's some extent of a learning curve because I think, both of them pad level can be an issue. They're a bit too upright. They don't get their knees bent. They don't get their weight underneath them. But the length was there. The athleticism was there. The want to was there. I think that's something that stood out with both guys is the motor. And even say they weren't able to win a rep, that doesn't mean that they were, completely shut out of it. They still fought like hell to get into the backfield. And it seems like that was something that's been missing at times in, recent years, in years past, where it's just kind of like, oh, well, we lost at the first point of attack. What do we do now? So, I mean, if it's a rookie defensive tackle, I'm expecting there's some sort of learning curve. But all things considered, I think Dexter and Pickens showed some nice flashes. And really just kudos to the whole defensive line in general for how they did in both halves, really. They just generated a lot of pressure. I know they're not, rookies, but like Trevis Gibson and Terrell Lewis were really impressive. And I think, having guys like Dexter and Pickens who are athletic enough that they can generate some attention in, as pass rushers, I think having that type of guy along the defensive line, I think that only helps out the edge rushers. So I feel like that played a bit of a role as well.
So fun fact, Jacob, I had to throw that. I learned this today, is that the last time the Bears had 8 sacks in a preseason, you want to know what their regular season record was?
What's that?
Take a guess.
Was it 2018?
It was 12 and 4, man.
Yeah.
And the only difference is that Khalil Mack was not in any preseason games. They traded for Mack right before week 1 and pretty much just told him go after Rodgers and make his life hell. We got Yannick, last week, and that was before the preseason even started. So it's because, 2018, you think of the worst thing that's ever happened in Chicago sports history, the famous noise. We're not going to go through it. But yes, it's exciting that this team is doing what they're doing. Again, it's a preseason game, pump the brakes a little bit kind of deal, but it's exciting because this team overall is very, very exciting. Let's go to the second-year guys a little bit, Jacob. We only got a couple minutes here, and I want to make sure that we hit on them, give them their respect. Kyler Gordon, holy cow, that guy can hit. Like he took the hits principle and absolutely owned it. Jack Sanborn looked really good. Bellis Jones, I don't know, man. I really just I was like, not again, man. But then Tyler Scott did it, and I'm like, great. Now we're 0 for 2.
Yeah.
A little nervous about that. DJ Moore though can do it if we really want to do it. But how you second year guys? Comments. Who were you most impressed by and most disappointed in from a second year guy perspective?
Yeah, so Kyler Gordon was someone who really impressed me. Again, like that physicality, the fact that, argue whatever you want about the result of the play, but, he jarred the ball loose twice with 2 massive hits. I think that says a lot about the tenacity he played with. And, you saw that a bit in coverage too. And, it's fun. You mentioned the hits principle. That's exactly what I was thinking when I was watching that first quarter, like that, the defense, or just in general, the defense as a whole is they're fighting like crazy. And I love that sense of urgency. So Kyler Gordon was someone who stood out to me. Not going to lie, I'm disappointed with that. Velus Jones had that, that issue with the punt return. But the good thing is, from a Bears perspective, is you've invested otherwise in the wide receiver position, where DJ Moore's in, he wasn't last year. Chase Claypool's in, now he wasn't to start the year. Tyler Scott's in, he wasn't last year. So you have faces and you have guys in there who are going to get touches. And, and that's not even including Darnell Mooney. And then you've got Cole Kmet, Robert Tonyan. You don't have to rely on Velus Jones or have that expectation where, if he gets like 7 catches in a season, it's a massive disappointment, which, he's a 3rd-round pick. You expect a lot more, but I think the blow is going to be a little bit lessened, regardless of whether he makes the team, regardless of how many snaps he plays, just because of the talent around him. So I was disappointed in that. I thought Sanborn did good, though. I was impressed with what I saw from him. So, all things considered. And also, I'm going to go on offense. I was impressed. I think Braxton Jones showed some good stuff at left tackle. I went back to watch, some clips from that, especially the first team starting offense, and Braxton Jones' athleticism just really stood out to me. Just how quick he is off the ball, how well he moves in pass protection. It's impressive to watch. Like if I'm going in totally blind and saying, this guy was a 5th-round pick last year out of an FCS school, I wouldn't have guessed that in a million years. So I was impressed with Braxton Jones. And then Tyrique Carter. How can I forget? Tyrique Carter played had a ton of snaps at right guard because, Nate Davis didn't play. So Carter was the next man up. And he played into the second team as well. And no hits allowed, no penalties allowed, no sacks allowed. He got like over a 90-something PFF grade. And he played a big role in both of those touchdowns as, lead blocker, get him out in space. And just drive smaller defensive backs out and have enough body control to be able to, make sure you're not whiffing when you get out in space. I was really impressed with him. So those are a handful of guys, I think, from a second year perspective. Those are some of the young guys I came away impressed with. But Tyrique Carter is the one that just really stood out to me.
I honestly, this sounds terrible. I kind of forgot about him last year. I know we took him.
Oh, no, that's fair.
He didn't get any playing time. And then suddenly at camp, I'm like, all right, throwing him at starting right guard. I'm like, okay, we got some depth there. Another shout out to Larry Borum. I know he's not a second year guy, but I thought he did great yesterday at left tackle for the second. And it sucks for him. He was a starter his rookie year. And then as the years have gone on, he's been slowly more and more battling for a spot. But I think he earned every ounce of second string left tackle because he did a great job. Yeah. But I'm struggling so hard right now with Nate Davis. And I know, like, just to bring it up, he's smiling at practice. He looks fine. Could be another Roschon Johnson thing where he's kind of like AI, just doesn't practice, doesn't do preseason, just kind of throw me out there. You're paying me the big bucks. Let me go play the big bucks. But
Yeah.
just an answer. I know Eberflus is super secretive about his guys' injuries, like Edmonds and all that stuff. But man, Nate Davis, Jacob, I don't know. I'm trying not to be nervous, but I am nervous, and it's
Yeah.
okay to say that I'm nervous.
Yeah.
But that's our guy. I mean, we spent a ton of money on him, and
Yeah.
for 3 years, it's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's valid to have like some level of concern, honestly. Like I'd be lying if I said that hasn't caught my attention. I'm just kind of like, what's up with that? Obviously you'd like to have him out there, and with just Eberflus's kind of protocol with how he goes about things, we're probably not going to know too much about that until he's, back in full. But I think given the circumstances, Carter played really well, and it's encouraging. Again, I know with some of these, like it's one preseason game, so it's not going to say like just off of one game that Carter's going to be like future All-Pro in the NFL or anything like that. But it's football, and it's reps against another team, and it means something. So having that at his disposal, I think, is going to be really helpful for Carter, especially as he's looking to make the team. I think that just off of week 1 alone, I feel very confident he's going to make the team. Larry Borum, you mentioned him. He did really well. And then from there, like I think Lucas Patrick, they'll probably keep him. And
they have to. His contract's too big to cut.
Yeah.
That's the one bad thing is what are you going to do?
And then you're looking at, okay, maybe one more offensive lineman, but who's it going to be? Is it going to be, are you bringing in Alex Leatherwood? Are you going to get Doug Kramer? Are you going to get like Logan Stenberg, who just got off waivers from the Lions? So I'm curious as to how the backup offensive line is going to play out. But I think with this whole Nate Davis situation, it's not ideal by any means. But the silver lining to come out of it is, Tyrique Carter's building some momentum. He's looking like he could be, a good backup. And for a 7th round pick, coming from a small school, I think if you can get a good backup, a reliable guard out of that, I think that's fantastic value.
Oh, absolutely. And Braxton Jones came from a small school, and Poles loves these small school. I'm just waiting for him to take someone from Illinois State. That's what I want, man. I want to see an ISU guy get called up and be like, yes, he's going to be successful because, Bell had a nice day yesterday too. Another small town, another small school kind of guy. I know it's small nationally, but in Georgia, it's a bigger school.
Yeah.
But yeah, just exciting for the entire team. I think Poles did a fantastic job putting this entire thing together. And I think the Bears are going to have a lot of success this year. I know a lot of people are saying, maybe like 9 wins, which fine. I'll take a 9-8 team, but I'm going minimum 10 wins. Like who can we not beat on this schedule besides the Chiefs? The Chiefs are the only game right now that I'm somewhat worried about, but they have all their drama going on with Christian Jones and all that stuff. So who knows what's going on in Kansas City? I don't know. But overall, a great day yesterday. A great day for the future of the Chicago Bears. And again, we only have 5 guys over 30 years old. So these guys are young. They're hungry. They're out there. Team looks great. And, Jacob, any final comments before we close out today?
Yeah, I'll just say I'm happy to have Bears preseason, just Bears football back in general, because this entire summer it's just been kind of like, all right, I'm going on Twitter or X or whatever the hell you want to call it now, and it's just there's nothing really. And I'm like, all right, I'm running out of stuff to talk about, and it's just, I'm like, I just want football to get here. So I know a lot of Bears fans, we've been pretty active on Twitter, on social media, on like live streams and YouTubes and stuff. And I think that speaks to the hunger that there is in the fan base to just have something to talk about finally and some football to break down. It's a very passionate fan base, and I'm happy to be a part of it. Very grateful to be a part of it. And if anyone cares about what I have to think, then, great. That's awesome. But in the grand scheme of things, I'm happy the Bears are back. I'm trying not to get my expectations too high off of the preseason. I'm not trying to let it sway my judgment super far one way or the other, because on one end of the Tanner Gentry scale of holy crap, this guy's balling out and then not doing anything in the regular season, you also have Jamar Chase dropping a bunch of passes in the preseason and then having an all-pro rookie year. So you have to there's a fine line, but if someone tells you, oh, it's just the preseason, who cares? Like, you have every right to be excited. Just don't get out of control. That's the only thing I recommend. But as long as there's good things going on with a young up and coming Bears football team, there's a lot to be excited about. So, I'm talking a little bit too much about, oh, Tyrique Carter had a good game at right guard and he's a 7th round.
Who cares?
Cool. He played well. It's fun. Let's talk about it. So, it's just nice to have Bears football back in any capacity. So I'm just grateful that I'm not just sitting around waiting for nothing to happen for like 3 months.
I'm with you. What was it? February, when the Bears were done in January, I was just like, oh my God, like what, draft's not for 3 months. Like, this is going to drive me crazy. So what we did with our time, we looked at prospects, and you are the king of looking at prospects, man. That's how I found you. It's during the time, you're great at, looking out for talent. You said Darnell Wright was one of your guys, and we got him. He was one of my guys too. And I took a lot of the information that you provided for everybody. So I highly suggest everyone goes and follows Jacob on Twitter. I'll put it in the description. But man, Jacob, I'm excited for the season, man. I'm not going to ask for your season prediction yet, because I know you're probably going to drop it on Twitter. And that's going to be, everyone's going to go, oh, all right. But it sounds like you're hinting at things are going to get pretty exciting for this team this year, which I'm excited for too, man. But Jacob, thanks for coming on, man. I know that you're a very busy guy, but the Bears are back. We're happy to have you on, and we're hoping to have you on again soon. And we're very excited for, September 10th cannot come soon enough. That's all I can say.
Yeah, no, I'm stoked for it. And I appreciate you having me on. This is, the first I've gotten to talk about an actual Bears game in 8 months now. So It's nice to actually have that outlet to talk about, okay, what happened in this game. So, but yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, what makes it even better is that Justin Fields had a really good game. So then you're like, guess what? You got nothing. Especially when Packers fans are like, what do we talk about now? It's like, oh no, your family day of 65,000 people, sick, man.
Good for you. All right.
Good for you. Yeah. So, man, I can't wait. But Jacob, we'll have you on again, man. We love talking to you. A lot of fun here, but absolutely everyone, make sure you go follow Jacob. But Jacob, thanks for coming on, man. Excited to have you on again.
Of course, dude. Thanks.
Absolutely. And thank you for joining this episode of Just Another Year Chicago. My name is Nick Brody, joined alongside Jacob Infante, and we will see you guys next time.